confident communication is not just about the words that we say. It's also important to understand the emotions that are behind these words. Our emotions and the emotions of the person opposite of us. Confident communication also means that we are effective in the way that we communicate and how we bring our message across. And when we understand our own emotions and the emotions of others, we can respond effectively and have a much more powerful and effective dialogue. In this video, we are going to explore how you can use your emotional intelligence to improve on your communication and become more confident and effective. Daniel Goleman, the father of emotional intelligence, defines emotional intelligence as the capability to understand and manage our own emotions as well as the emotions of others, and also manage and regulate these emotions so that they don't have an impact on our behaviors, words, and actions. So let's explore in a bit more detail how emotional intelligence competencies impact your communication. Let's start with competency number 1, self-awareness. Self-awareness is crucial for effective communication because it helps you to understand how you are feeling about what you're going to say or what you want out of this interaction or this conversation or discussion. It also helps you to become more aware of your emotions and your emotional states by understanding your triggers and understanding how these triggers impact your thoughts and your behaviors at the same time. So this means also that you are able to recognize how your emotions impact the conversation that you are leading or that you're taking part of. Competency number 2 is self-regulation. And this one is crucial because it helps us to not only understand our emotions and the impact they might have on the conversation, but it also helps us to then manage and understand what we can do to minimize the impact this emotion has on what we're going to say next or how we're going to behave. So it's this ability to understand our triggers, but then also understand that we need to support ourselves to move through this emotion before it actually has an impact or it makes us say something or do something that we might later regret. So it allows you to maintain emotional control and control over your rational part of the brain. So you can stay calm in a conversation if you've been triggered. And it also will help you to manage your nerves before you even enter a difficult conversation, for example. It will also help you to get better control of your body language, because we sometimes internalize our emotions and our body and facial expressions might actually communicate something different to what we want to achieve in this conversation. So we want to make sure that we are really well aware of how our emotions and how our state impacts how we show up, how we position our body, and what our face does. So the more we can be self-aware and then regulate our emotions, the better we can position ourselves in the conversations. So you want to start by understanding your emotions and be more self-aware around recent triggers you might have had. What are common situations that make you feel nervous or flustered or kind of trigger you to be frustrated or angry? And then you want to start to identify self-regulation techniques that will help you in the heat of the moment. So this might be simple things like taking 1 or 2 deep breaths, or it could be you actually really physically taking one step back, or taking just a pause. And if you feel like you need a bit more time, it also means that in your toolbox you will have the ability to say, hey, I need a break, can we come back in 5 minutes? Or that you say, can we reschedule this meeting for tomorrow? It's really important for me, but I can feel myself getting a little bit defensive or getting a little bit emotionally triggered, and I want to make sure that I'm as calm as possible when we talk about this because it's important to me. You absolutely have the right to stop a conversation and to postpone it to a different date. Because while you're in an emotional state and your rational brain is switched off because you're in fight or flight mode, you actually can't have a proper conversation that will lead to a good outcome for both parties. So if you feel like you've been triggered and you can't help yourself regulate in that moment, you want to be able to take a break and come back at a later stage. Competency number 3 is empathy. This might be pretty straightforward, right? Because empathy really helps you to tune into the other person, to tune into what's important to them, what are their needs and their perspective and where they're coming from. So it, on the one hand, will allow you to prepare the conversation, to really understand what do you want to achieve and how is the best way to go about it? How can you communicate this effectively? what is the scene you want to set to make this effective, and also what could be their potential ideas or their potential perspectives, so you can prepare yourself well. And then also, while you're in the conversation, it obviously helps you to tune in and understand and be very sensitive to their eye movements, their body movements, and what they say and their tone of voice, to really understand if they are triggered by something, what's really important to them, and really start to see their perspective. This will help you to come to a conclusion, for example, find a common ground, find a solution, or then adapt your next response or your next point in what you're going to say. It also helps you, of course, when you're leading a big presentation and you want to be confident in your communication, because it helps you to prepare for the audience. Who are the people that you're talking to? What is important to them? What are their desired outcomes? And so you can cater to that, and you can cater to this audience more effectively. To build and cultivate more empathy, it's also important to practice active listening, asking really powerful questions, to getting to know the other person, and then really taking a step back and being quiet more often. Challenge yourself to talk a bit less and to really draw out the other person, what they want to say. So this is a good way to practice empathy and start to be more aware of the other people around you. And the fourth competency is assertiveness, or straightforwardness. And this competency is your ability to clearly state what you want to say in a very clear, transparent, and easy to understand way. And so all the competencies I've mentioned before, like your self-awareness, self-regulation, and also empathy, will allow you to cater this straightforward method. It will allow you, on the one hand, to bring your nerves down, because I know most of the time when people come to me and ask for help to be more assertive, it's often that they feel nervous and that they start to have self-doubt and kind of go down a spiral. And so it often comes down to self-regulation and kind of acknowledging what they're feeling and then helping themselves to calm down and use these nerves to their advantage. So all of this will help you to be more assertive and clear and straightforward. And empathy will also help you to, of course, do it in a straightforward but kind way. Clear is kind, as Brené Brown says, and we want to make sure that, especially in a leadership role, we bring our points across and we talk about feedback in an open, transparent, and clear way, but with kindness and with a lot of empathy. The fifth competency of emotional intelligence that will help you with your communication is your relationship skills. And this is the ability to build really strong and authentic connections. So your empathy, of course, will support you in this to really understand what's important for other people. But then these relationship skills go a little bit further, because it's also about building up relationships over time. So becoming more aware about the people around you and what they might need from you, to actively invest in relationships so that they are mutually beneficial and it's not just one dominant part taking advantage of another part. So you want to make sure that you look at your team members, your peers, your important stakeholders, your manager, and you really start to think about what can you intentionally do for each of these people to strengthen and foster the relationship and the trust. This will then lead to much more effective communication, because the stronger your relationship is, the bigger the trust, the better you can communicate and even discuss the difficult topics. And then lastly, the other competency of emotional intelligence, called adaptability, has a big impact on your communication, because it lets you stay a bit more resilient and flexible in the moment. So because of all the competencies working together, when things happen that you haven't foreseen or reactions that you weren't quite anticipating, it will help you to stay calm and not reactive. So calming yourself down so you can be flexible in how you respond and be a little bit more level-headed and clear in your response. Or when things go wrong, you can start to figure out a different path and be more flexible in that moment. So you want to pay attention to verbal and non-verbal cues of the people around you, and then adapt your plan, your communication in the moment. Very often, either when we present to a big group, but also in one-on-one conversations, we of course prepare, and I always talk about how important it is to prepare and spend lots of time in the preparation part. But of course, things will never quite happen to plan. There might be interruptions, there might be technical problems, there might be people with strong opinions that they're throwing at you. So you want to practice to stay flexible and also prepare yourself being flexible and anticipating that almost, because then you can kind of react in the moment and cater to what everybody might need in that instance. So to summarize, investing in your emotional intelligence is really important because it has a massive benefit on all parts of leadership, but also your ability to communicate confidently, effectively, and assertively. And that's something that a lot of emerging leaders struggle with at the start. So focusing on your self-awareness, understanding what you're feeling and how these emotions impact your thoughts and behaviors. Then understanding your triggers and challenging and working with these triggers. So self-regulating yourself in the heat of the moment when these emotions arise. Then you want to practice to have bigger empathy and really learn and listen and tune into what people need. You want to look at relationship skills and how you can foster true trusted relationships. You want to become more assertive and clear in your communication and really also talk about the difficult topics. And then you also want to stay adaptable and flexible so that in the heat of the moment, when things go wrong or differently as you anticipated, you can then react and adapt your communication accordingly. Let me know if you have any more questions around this topic. There's a few more videos linked up here on emotional intelligence and communication, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.